Welcome to Lashback, everyone. I'm Natalyan.
And I'm Phoebe, and today we are going to be talking about being an entrepreneur. Give us your quote, Nat.
Yeah, so we'll call it a quote, but as you know, I just Google, and I think this one's from like Copilot or something. Um, this is what it says. An entrepreneur is someone who undertakes the risk of starting a new business venture. They identify a need that no existing business addresses and create a solution for it. Entrepreneurship involves developing and starting a new business, often with the goal of turning a profit. Entrepreneurs actively seek business opportunities and assume the greatest amount of risk associated with their projects. So, just to start this off, I think I disagree with 99.9% of that, in the sense that an existing business not an existing business,
Yeah.
and that, the greatest amount of risk. Um, an entrepreneur to me doesn't have to mean that you're going to be Richard Branson and make millions or billions. It doesn't even mean that you have to take a massive risk. Being an entrepreneur to me is, we've had an episode about this, multiple income streams, using your creativity. So you could be an entrepreneur if you decide to, you know, make flowers and put them online as a hobby. You're an entrepreneur to
Yes,
me.
totally. And it's like entrepreneur as a title, like I'm a business owner, entrepreneurial skills.
Mm.
I mean, like, in UK PLC or in an organization, an entrepreneurial skill is somebody, you want that in a fundraising department or a sales department, don't you? Somebody that can see those connections, can see the need, can pull things together to supply to that need. That's an entrepreneurial skill. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're not on a salary or that that's your only source of income.
Absolutely, because that quote does definitely allude to the fact that it's a business venture, a being singular,
Mm.
and you're building this empire, and it's so risky, but you're great, get the greatest reward, and it's you found that one business venture or idea that no one in the universe
Yeah.
has ever thought of. That
And risky in relation to what?
I assume they mean money.
Money.
Yeah. Yeah, or income, as in you losing money, not making money. I think that needs to be updated. I'm sure I can find a better quote somewhere, but I think we've come up with a theme in Lashback. Let's see what comes up first.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I'm an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And as you say, you can be an entrepreneur and you can have a full-time job, 9 to 5.
And I mean, modern language, which you see around a lot these days, is the side hustle. And if
Mhm.
everyone's got to have a side hustle on top of their day jobs, then aren't we all entrepreneurs? That quote makes it sound a bit like you're special.
Yeah,
Special if you're an
yeah.
entrepreneur. Actually, that's not necessarily true. Because
No,
like you say, you can choose to can have entrepreneurial skill in picking the flowers in your garden and selling them at the market on a Sunday. But Monday to Friday you do something entirely different.
yeah. And society, multiple income streams, with the rise of the internet, social media, that's become a thing. But more so, in my opinion, a lot of people have to have multiple income streams and get creative because they can't afford not to be.
Yeah.
Even with two really successful incomes in a household, people are struggling.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, they're having to think creative here. And also to me, being an entrepreneur is I've had 9 to 5 jobs, not a lot, and I don't ever plan to be in them for that long, but I have had them. But my take on entrepreneur in terms of Natalie Ann is that I've got many ambitions and I like to fulfill them. Some make money, some don't. I've made money in my music and I have not made money in my music. I'm writing a book at the moment that may make money, it may not. And we've had an episode about
Entrepreneurial
this.
of you to be
Yeah,
writing the book though, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And this alludes to another episode about, how to kind of go for your ambitions and you know go forward with things. For me, I'm thinking about not the end goal of is anyone going to buy the book, but the journey of writing the book and what that what I get out of that. But to me,
Yeah.
that's me being an entrepreneur, that I do that we're doing Lashback, that I do my project management business. I'm a vocalist. I'm an entrepreneur.
I wonder what the etymology of the word is. entrepreneur? Because like in the music industry, you know, a promoter might be an entrepreneur, a musician is an entrepreneur, somebody that puts some investment into a product that then goes and sells it. But like in the music industry, that's like, okay, I'm going to practice my set. I'm going to write some songs. I'm going to practice my set. I'm going to go and play them in a bar or a venue. I'm going to build an audience. I'm going to put on shows. That's entrepreneurial skills. But I'm wondering, like, it's funny, it's a dyslexic thing, this, but the word entrepreneur always reminds me of Star Trek because the ship in Star Trek is the Enterprise. And of
Yeah,
course,
no,
enterprise is the word that is what entrepreneur is about. I have an
as
enterprise.
yeah. Well, I think, and I'm thinking this through as we're talking about it.
Mm.
Um, I think you can have backtracking on what we just said about me book writing. I think maybe the book writing is an entrepreneurial trait and action, but being an actual on doing being an entrepreneur is turning something into a business.
We're turning it into money.
Yeah,
I have an enterprise.
or revenue, revenue.
Revenue.
'Cause you might not make any money, but you'll be generating
Profit.
revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's what I think that is, because my book writing at the moment would be seen to some as just a hobby, which it is. I'm not a
Well,
writer.
I
I want
spend a lot of money recording songs and putting them on Spotify, and Spotify are making loads of money out of it.
yeah. So you are an entrepreneur for
I'm just
someone
not,
else.
yeah, I'm just not making loads of money from the songs I put on Spotify. Although they do get streamed. So,
They do. Well, they're fantastic.
you know.
So what was I going to say here as well? I've put a note here when we were like talking about this episode about I think that this should be known as an old school definition. From back in the day when if you had a 9 to 5 job, you started that job and then you retired in that job.
Yeah,
And probably the woman was at home and the man was working.
yeah.
And you didn't, so for me, that needs wherever Copilot got that from needs updating. Because to me, that's an old school definition of an entrepreneur.
Well, the thing with AI that really interests me is the fact that it just scans the internet for already knowledge. And
And
there
that
was a
worries
thing I read about maybe it was a year ago now, and I know things move on really quickly in this field. But at one point, everyone's making AI pictures. If you ask AI to do afro hair, it couldn't do it because
me. Wow.
actually, in terms of representation on the internet, it's a privilege to have the internet. We've said this before, haven't we?
Yeah.
There's loads of people that don't actually have a phone or internet connection or a computer. So, it's the ultimate echo chamber in a way for what is
Yeah.
already out there. So you have to feed the internet with more truth before AI will give you truth
Well, it's like
or an unbiased perspective.
yeah, yeah, well, exactly. And where you've raised such a significant point, which we have discussed in a previous episode,
Mm,
um, about that echo chamber. Because we're in England, America, we're just, most people just assume that everybody is on the internet, assumes that everybody has a mobile phone.
yeah.
There's a significant number of countries and populations that don't. So you've then got to look at that demographic. And the fact that you just mentioned is horrifying, quite frankly. And this is where Copilot's pulled that from.
Yeah. So, AI, there's a lot of, this isn't an episode about AI, but, I guess, let me make a tenuous link. I guess if we're talking entrepreneurialness and
Mm,
enterprise, I guess the wagon that everybody would be jumping on now is where AI is changing the world. Knowledge is becoming free. We won't have to pay those lawyers anymore because we'll just download it from AI will tell us how to run the case or whatever. But there is something for me about, what can AI not do other than my laundry? Is which is a joke. That's not my joke. But there is something, isn't there, about
feeling,
AI can make a song. You can get AI to write a song for
yeah,
your significant other or whatever, but it won't stand on that stage and create a community vibe and have everyone jumping and clapping and singing. And in a way, it's going to call us to uh, get out of our houses after COVID. Really, I think some people still are stuck in and come together and build community and connection and be in the presence of other people. Because life is disconnected without that. Um, so it's interesting, like maybe an enterprising thing in modern day is to enterprise people to come and be together in community rather than, hey, I'm going to make a profit out of selling this thing that's just going to end up in landfill.
Good link, good link.
Anyway,
Because I was wondering where that link was coming from.
I wonder where I was going.
No, no, the AI point, I had a significant conversation about AI this week because we're contemplating with one of my business partners doing an event, and the topic being about AI and versus human, and the fallacies around that. So let's park that one. I've written it down. We're going to make an episode on that because
Yes.
there's many good points to talk about. But linking to going back to your link there, I think that's a really good point, that updating, me calling this quote, so it's not quote, this wording from Copilot as to the definition of an entrepreneur is very old school, and the updating component is that the entrepreneur word has changed. What an entrepreneur is has changed, because again, back in the day, whatever that day is, most people would generally do 9 to 5 jobs in
1960.
the yeah. So then when people did start their own business or something, then they were probably this, right?
Much riskier. Oh
Yeah,
no, how are you going to pay your mortgage? How are you without a stat? Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
there's a lot to be said here around the conditioning about what we're told we should do and what's success and what's not success.
Yeah, exactly. And what I've got here as well is, let's talk a bit before we run out of time, about the pros and cons, because I think it's really interesting to talk about the pros and cons, and it does take certain personality traits that I've even discussed with friends. Like one of my friends said, I don't know how you do what you do. Like, I need to know my paychecks coming. I need to know this is paid for. And like, might make a fortune for a couple of months, which if you prorated that across the year would be, half a million
not a
quid.
fortune. Yeah,
Yeah, well, say it would be,
yeah.
but it's not as regular as that, right? Or it can be or may not be. And then suddenly I might not have a contract for a while. I might not have a music contract, might not have a business contract. And I'm like, okay, well, good job I've got some money. So I'm kind of, you know, my experience is definitely the pros outweigh the cons. But when the cons are there, they're strong.
Yeah, because there is that security. It's not just about I get paid on the 20th of the month every month. I get that same amount, which of
Yes,
course is a trap because then you get stuck to that same amount. And the
you do.
entrepreneurial spirit would be like, well, I don't know whether it's the 20th or the 30th, and I don't know whether it's this amount or that amount. But given that I don't know, I can charge you more. And that means that, it depends how it is about opportunity and jumping on opportunity. I had a
It
couple
is.
of years ago, I had a bit of a reckoning with myself about the money I was making as a freelance entrepreneur, own business, whatever, business owner is probably, I don't think I would ever have said entrepreneur. And I realized there was a cost of living was really going a bit wibbly in the UK. And I was getting clients were saying to me, I can't book with you for next week. I'm going to wait till the week after. I'm a bit skint. And I realized that a large proportion of my clients were individuals
Mm,
and that my money was coming from individuals being able to afford to pay me. And I was like,
yeah,
there's a flaw here in my business model.
yeah.
And that in itself is an entrepreneurial skill because I've recognized that before I was in deep water around it. I went and got some other kind of business. But then I go and work for a company and, somebody starts talking about, oh, there might be redundancies next year. And I'm like, it's the same thing.
Mm,
Whether it's an individual or a company, things change, people's budgets change, whether that's like the big organizational budget or the personal budget that's going to pay me for singing, teaching, or coaching or whatever. Whether a company's bringing me in to do some consultancy, it's still that. And that's the component of risk because once you have a job, you've got employment law and then you've got notice periods and all those sorts of good
yeah,
good things
absolutely.
that and when you don't have that you have that constant needing that constant churn of who's next, where's the next money coming from, where's it coming from next. Now I as an ADHDer love that way of life because it keeps me on my toes, And the
Same.
minute I'm in a salary situation, I'm get a little bit bored.
Yeah.
Although I like the security, I also
Yeah.
get a little bit bored.
Want it all.
And then I get really, really tired because I can't say no to the entrepreneurial things I want to do as well.
Yep.
So I end up
Yep.
working
We're both doing
8
that at the
hours.
moment. We're both doing that at
Yeah.
the moment, right? But you know what's an interesting thing? I had a conversation with somebody the other day about the because I'm obviously, as everyone that listens to us knows, I'm residing in the USA at the moment, and I have health insurance, which is a nightmare. That's a whole episode in itself, so we won't go into that. But apparently, I was speaking to an American the other day who I was, ranting to about it,
Mm.
and they said that because I said, oh, I've been offered a few jobs, longer term contracts, 2 years as an employee. I just can't bring myself to do it, Phoebe, because then I'm locked in, not just 9 to 5. It is way more
It's always
going to be
more.
more than, yeah. And then I can't do what we're doing, what I'm doing, what we're doing, what I'm doing over there, what I'm doing over there. But the whole package is beneficial from a health insurance perspective, from a pension perspective, from a, dental perspective, whatever. And then
Pros and
that's when
cons,
my,
isn't it?
yeah, but that's when my business partner said to me that apparently, and I can't remember the decade they said, would have to look this up, but apparently businesses in the United States never used to offer medical insurance, but it was a push at one point to drive entrepreneurship. So a lot of people were, sorry, to pull away from entrepreneurship. Let me correct myself, because people were setting up themselves and everything, and then they couldn't
Yeah.
afford healthcare. So the businesses weren't, recruiting as well. So they had to offer some health insurance.
And
But
why would
there's,
I come and work for you when I could work for myself? Oh, I get all these perks.
and you get a lot of benefits in the USA for work. I mean, even if I go and get a job at Starbucks, which is something I'm
You don't get
significantly,
annual leave. You don't get annual leave or maternity leave, but it's
well, you do get annual leave,
paid time off.
paid time off. Yeah.
Yeah, which is the I was chatting with a colleague recently, and I was saying I'm going to clock off early today. And he kind of looked at me a bit. We were on Teams. Looked at me a bit like, "You allowed to do that?" And I said to her, "Now listen, when I'm not here, I'm still thinking about it.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not, so like, I'm tired. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm clocking off early. I ain't
Yeah.
asking nobody permission.
No.
I want to do a good job tomorrow." And
We're also adults. We're also adults. Like, I can't possibly, me, there's no way I'm going into a workforce and being told to start at 9 and finish at 5. I mean, you know how much I work. I know how much you work. You're getting 10 times the amount of the average human being from me in a day anyway. So then if I want to clock off at 2 p.m., I'm going to clock off at 2 p.m. But that's what I struggle with. But we've both had, full-time jobs, and there's a lot to be said for that. So, you can be, I think, wrapping up this episode, you can be an entrepreneur and have that security. We're talking about us as human beings and us as traits, and there's
what
a lot to be said for that.
and what we're talking about here, we should put this on the list for future episodes. I'd love to
Yeah,
talk at some point around organizational workplace culture and management. Because actually, if you've got a good relationship with your line manager, or you've got a good line manager who's given you good objectives and you work to your objectives, you can manage your time. You've got a really bad manager, they're clock checking when you're at your desk because they don't actually know how to do, I'm not going
we
to talk about
definitely
that
need to
now.
talk about that. No, we definitely
So
need to
much
talk
to say.
about that. Yeah, we'll do a 45-minute episode on that one.
Yeah, well-being at work starts with the people that manage you for sure.
I just don't, unless you're training someone, straight out of school or in a job, and they need to be there to be trained. When I've hired developers on technical projects, I do not care if they're on a beach in Hawaii having a surf every 30 minutes. Like, I literally don't care.
Yeah,
But when you come to
come
the
to the
meet,
meeting I've booked. That's all.
yeah, come to the meeting I've booked, or if something comes up, just let me know. Like, you and me have had a busy few weeks. I've moved around dates constantly, but I give you notice. I request to move them. I don't just not turn up.
Yeah.
We all have life and we all have things that happen in life, but you still adhere to your commitments. That's the key thing. It doesn't matter how, you just have to. And then when you come to the meeting, if you've said you're going to do something, make sure it's done.
Is
That's
that an
what
entrepreneurial skill then? That's
I
entrepreneurial
think.
skills at work, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a really good
Mm.
point. So we need to expand on this episode because we're already how long are we in?
We're at time.
We're at time. So let's all of our episodes, listeners, we're going to be going back to, and we're starting to do reels and posts on social media about all of these episodes. You can comment on them. So please share our videos. Please subscribe.
And please do comment on this video as well, because it really does help more than you can imagine to push the Lashback vibes out there.
Yes.
And with that said, we'll see you next week.
See you next week, guys. Thank you.